Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. Whispers in the Fog. Holly Arnold arrived on the Isle of Wight with a sense of trepidation. The island had always been her family's sanctuary, a place where memories were made during sun-drenched summers. But this visit was different. This time she was alone, and the winter fog was an ever-present shroud over the coastal town of Ventnor. She had inherited her grandmother's cottage after her passing, a quaint, ivy-covered abode perched precariously on the edge of the cliffs. Holly hadn't been back in years, not since the summer when she was 13 and her younger brother, Danny, had gone missing. The island had never felt the same since, and the memories of that dreadful day haunted her still. The fog had rolled in thick and fast as Holly unpacked her bags. It was unlike any fog she had ever seen, dense and almost alive, swirling with a malevolent energy. It muffled the sounds of the sea and seemed to absorb the light, casting everything in an eerie, grey gloom. By nightfall the fog had seeped into every crevice of the town. Holly sat by the fireplace, the crackling flames offering little comfort against the oppressive atmosphere outside. She felt a strange compulsion to go out, a whisper at the edge of her consciousness urging her to the cliffs. Wrapping a scarf around her neck, Holly stepped out into the fog. The air was cold and damp, each breath she took feeling heavy in her lungs. The path to the cliffs was barely visible, the familiar landscape transformed into a ghostly labyrinth. As she neared the cliff's edge, she heard it a whisper, faint and distant, carried by the wind. She stopped, straining to hear. The voice was soft, almost comforting, but there was something unsettling about it. It seemed to be calling her name. Holly, Holly. Her heart raced as she followed the sound, drawn to it against her better judgment. The fog thickened, and the voice grew clearer, more distinct. It wasn't just one voice. It was many, overlapping and intertwining, creating a chilling symphony of sound. Holly, help us, find us. She stumbled, her foot catching on something half buried in the earth. Looking down, she saw the glint of metal, a locket tarnished with age. She recognized it immediately. It was Danny's. Memories flooded back of that summer day, the last time she had seen her brother. They had been playing near the cliffs when the fog had rolled in. One moment Danny was there, and the next he was gone. The search had gone on for weeks, but he had never been found. Tears welled up in Holly's eyes as she clutched the locket to her chest. The voices were louder now, more insistent. Come to us, Holly. She took a step closer to the edge, the fog swirling around her, the whispers almost deafening. She felt a hand on her shoulder and spun around, expecting to see someone. But there was no one there. The fog was playing tricks on her mind, she told herself. She had to get back to the cottage. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more desperate, as if trying to tell her something important. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, pleading, anguished. Back at the cottage, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She sat by the fire, clutching Danny's locket, the whispers still echoing in her ears. She had to find out what had happened to her brother, to uncover the secrets the fog was trying to reveal. The next morning, she visited the local library, hoping to find some clues. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Granger, seemed surprised to see her. Holly Arnold, I remember you. It's been years. What brings you back? I'm trying to find out what happened to my brother, Holly said. Do you remember the day he disappeared? Mrs. Granger's expression grew somber. Of course, everyone remembers. It was a tragedy, but there was always something strange about that day. Strange how? Holly asked. The fog, Mrs. Granger replied. It was unlike any we'd ever seen, and the whispers. People said they heard voices calling out to them. Holly's heart skipped a beat. Voices. What did they say? No one could understand them, Mrs. Granger said. But there were rumors. Some said the voices were the spirits of those who had died on the cliffs, trying to warn the living. Holly shivered. Do you think Danny could still be out there? Mrs. Granger's eyes were sad. I don't know, dear, but if the fog has returned, maybe the spirits are trying to tell you something. Determined to uncover the truth, Holly spent the next few days exploring the island, following the whispers wherever they led. The fog was ever present, and the voices grew clearer with each passing day. They led her to places she had long forgotten, places she and Danny had played as children. One evening, as the sun set and the fog rolled in once more, Holly found herself back at the cliffs. The whispers were louder than ever, a cacophony of voices all speaking at once. She could barely make out the words, but one voice stood out above the rest, a child's voice. "Holly, help me." "Danny," she called out, her voice trembling. "Help me, Holly." She followed the voice to the very edge of the cliff, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. Fog parted, revealing a narrow path that descended into the darkness. With a deep breath, Holly stepped onto the path, the whispers guiding her steps. The descent was treacherous, the path slick with moss and rain. But Holly pressed on, driven by the hope that she might finally find her brother. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, urging her forward. At the bottom of the path, she found a small cave hidden from view by the fog. The entrance was barely visible, a dark hole in the cliffside. Taking a deep breath, Holly stepped inside. The cave was cold and damp, the air thick with the scent of earth and decay. The whispers echoed off the walls, surrounding her, guiding her deeper into the darkness. She followed them, her flashlight flickering as if struggling against the oppressive atmosphere. At the far end of the cave she found a small chamber. And there, lying on the ground, was Danny. He looked exactly as he had the day he disappeared, his clothes untouched by time. Holly's heart ached as she knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Danny," she whispered, reaching out to touch him. His skin was cold, but he stirred at her touch, his eyes fluttering open. "Holly," he whispered, his voice weak. "Is it really you?" "It's me, Danny," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm here. I'm going to take you home." With great effort, she helped him to his feet, supporting his weight as they made their way back to the entrance of the cave. The whispers were softer now, almost gentle, as if guiding them safely home. As they emerged from the cave, the fog began to lift, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the grey gloom. Holly and Danny made their way back to the cottage, the weight of the past lifting with each step. In the days that followed, the fog slowly dissipated, and the whispers faded away. Holly and Danny spent hours talking, sharing stories of their time apart. Danny had no memory of the years he had been missing, but he was grateful to be home. The island seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the fog lifted completely, the sun shining down on the cliffs once more. Holly knew that the whispers had been the spirits of those lost on the island, guiding her to her brother, revealing the secrets long buried by time and tragedy. As she stood on the cliffs, looking out over the sea, Holly felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The whispers in the fog had brought her brother back to her, and in doing so, had healed the wounds of the past. The Isle of Wight would always hold its secrets, but Holly knew that as long as she listened to the whispers, she would never be alone. Holly felt an unspoken bond with the island now. The whispers had changed her, drawing her deeper into the mysteries and history of the Isle of Wight. She decided to stay longer, feeling that her purpose was not yet fulfilled. Weeks turned into months as Holly and Danny settled into a new routine. Danny's recovery was slow. He often seemed lost in thought, as if the years of absence weighed heavily on his mind. Holly couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover, that the island's secrets ran deeper than she initially thought. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Danny spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Holly, there's something else, something I remember from the cave." Holly leaned in, her heart pounding. "What is it, Danny?" There was another voice, he said, his eyes distant. A woman's voice, she kept saying, "Find me." The next day, Holly returned to the library, seeking Mrs. Granger's guidance once more. The librarian greeted her with a knowing look. "I knew you'd be back," Mrs. Granger said. "There's more to this island than meets the eye, isn't there?" Holly nodded. Danny heard another voice in the cave, a woman asking to be found. Mrs. Granger's face grew serious. "There are legends, old ones, about the spirits that haunt this island. One in particular might interest you, the tale of Eliza Harrow, a woman who disappeared over a century ago." Holly leaned in, eager to hear more. Mrs. Granger continued. "Eliza was believed to have drowned at sea, but her body was never found. Some say her spirit never left the island, that she roams the cliffs, searching for something or someone. Armed with this new information, Holly decided to delve deeper into the island's history. She pored over old maps and documents, uncovering stories of shipwrecks, disappearances, and ghostly apparitions. The more she read, the more she became convinced that Eliza Harrow's story was connected to the whispers in the fog. One stormy night, Holly returned to the cliffs, feeling the familiar pull of the voices. The wind howled, and the waves crashed violently against the rocks. The fog rolled in thicker than ever, and the whispers began anew. "Find me, find me." Holly followed the whispers to a secluded part of the cliff she had never explored before. There she found the remains of an old shipwreck half buried in the sand. The sight sent shivers down her spine. She knew this had to be connected to Eliza. As she explored the wreckage, she stumbled upon a small, weathered chest. Inside, she found a diary, its pages yellowed and fragile. Carefully, she opened it, revealing the elegant handwriting of Eliza Harrow. The diary chronicled Eliza's life, her hopes and dreams, and her ill-fated voyage. Holly read with growing unease as Eliza recounted strange occurrences on the ship, unexplained noises, sightings of ghostly figures, and the sense of being watched. The final entry was chilling. "The fog has come. I fear this will be my last night. If anyone finds this, know that I am searching for peace." Holly felt a pang of sadness for Eliza. She had to find a way to bring her spirit peace. The whispers seemed to agree, growing more urgent. Help her. Free her. The next day, Holly enlisted Danny's help. They returned to the shipwreck, determined to give Eliza a proper resting place. As they worked, the fog thickened, and the whispers grew louder, guiding their efforts. They found a secluded spot on the cliffs and buried the chest, marking it with a simple stone. As they finished, the fog began to lift, and the whispers faded into a gentle breeze. Holly felt a sense of closure, as if Eliza's spirit had finally found peace. She and Danny stood in silence, honoring the memory of the woman whose story had intertwined with their own. Days turned into weeks, and life on the Isle of Wight returned to a semblance of normalcy. Holly felt the deep connection to the island, its history, and its secrets. She knew there would always be more to uncover, more spirits to help find peace. And as long as she listened to the whispers in the fog, she would be ready to face whatever came next. One evening, as the sun set over the cliffs, Holly stood at the edge, gazing out at the horizon. The fog was gone, but the island was alive with a quiet energy. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see Danny, a peaceful look on his face. "Thank you, Holly," he said softly, "for bringing me back and for helping Eliza." Holly smiled, tears of relief and joy in her eyes. "We did it together, Danny. The island's secrets are safe with us." As they stood together, the first stars appeared in the sky, and Holly knew that the Isle of Wight, with all its mysteries and whispers, would always be a part of their lives. The fog might return one day, bringing new voices and new secrets, but she was no longer afraid. She was ready. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.